This is Family Search, Family Tree. What's new and what's next? If you're in the wrong place, it's too late. You got to stay. Unless you were smart enough to get in the back row, then you can sneak out. He's married to Eliza. Sydney's his dad. This is Martin Henry Tanner, married to Emmeline, and his father was Nathan. They were actually cousins. This is Henry Martin and Martin Henry. They were actually cousins that had the same grandparents. Do you think they got just as mad back then, ladies, when somebody stole the other kid's name? But New Family Church had a problem. Although we worked together, it had a disease, which all of you have had and will continue to have occasionally. It's called mitreitis. Mitreitis is a disease that happens when you say, mine, 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 and no one else is allowed. Not even your brother, who happens to have the same relatives, where you'll see all the matching records with their information. Clicking review on any one of them will take you back to the ancestor page with that specific record. So then now you can check that out. Another thing we're doing is a descendancy view. It can be very helpful to find areas where information is not placed in the tree. Oftentimes it happens with descendancy. For some reason, we all tend to think genealogy is just going straight back. But genealogy is not only going back, but it's also coming from the past, coming forward, so that we can get all those people documented as well. So we think descendancy view will help out. With a descendancy view, you'll start your view from an ancestor sometime in the past. You'll pick your ancestor out of your line in the shared tree, and then we'll walk the line down through the descendants, and you'll be able to look for missing children and spouses. We'll also do, matching records showing up here so you can see where there's records that may be available about those particular.
Hi there. I can't see you now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. My name is Krista Cowan, and I am employed by Ancestry.com. I have been with Ancestry.com.
Cemetery.
This past weekend was my 10-year anniversary.
And I said, what?
She said, the kids, they want to go see a cemetery. They've never been to a cemetery. And you talk about it all the time. And so we drove past one on the way to the park, and they want to go there on the way home from the park. And I checked my schedule, and there was no way I was going to be able to get out of the office to go to the cemetery with them. And I was heartbroken.
For just a minute,
as
if
only
you
a
didn't know
genealogist
this,
or if you haven't paid attention lately, Ancestry.com now has more than 12 billion historical records online. And that's, even trying to wrap my mind around that number sometimes baffles me. We have 55 million family trees that users have created, and we have 2.7 million subscribers across all of our One of the reasons why you want a tree on Ancestry.com is because it is the only way outside of Family Tree Maker to access the shaky leaf technology. Ancestry.com, in the background, actually goes through your tree, and with our computers, we compare your tree to the top 10% of our most popular databases. And if we can find a record that we think is for your person, we wave a little leaf at you the next time you come to your tree. Here's what that looks like in real time here. If I come in here to my tree, you're gonna have to watch closely. The little leaves just wiggle a little bit. And now I've got hints in my tree where Ancestry.com has already found records for me. So marriage record, a death record, a find a grave, tombstone photo, his World War I draft card, a 1900 census. Right? Ancestry is already done. The final tab on Ancestry.com, and that's the Ancestry DNA tab. Hopefully you heard Spencer Wells' keynote address this morning where he talked about the exciting world of DNA. Ancestry.com has been doing DNA testing for a really long time. We, for years, have done Y-DNA testing and mtDNA testing. That's something that you're likely familiar with if you've looked into DNA at all. However, the new world of DNA testing is autosomal DNA. So rather than taking a look at just a few markers on a Y chromosome, we're looking at 700,000 locations across your entire genome. And we're providing you with some really cool information. Let me just show you my DNA results. I actually shared these with a group of women I did an interview with. His older brothers made sure he knew about his mother, that he knew who she was because he had been so little when she died. And so my mom's whole life, she talked about this grandmother with her dad, and he told her those stories. And so when I was born, my mom named me after her. And now, for the first time, because of that DNA cousin who only had 3 people in his tree, I have a photograph of the great-grandmother that I'm named after. And it's a terrible picture. And so my mom was so excited to get it, she shared it on Facebook. And within just a couple of days, another one of her cousins contacted her and said, I have an original copy of that. Would you like it? And for my birthday this year, I got an original copy of this photo that now hangs in my office. Family history is about making connections. Ancestry.com is just one of many tools that will allow you to do that. I hope you will make the most out of that experience. Thank you.
Can we get the mic? Oh, great. Good morning, Roots Tech. And good morning to all of you who are watching from your own couches. My name is Tammy Heps, and I am the founder of treelines.com, a website that helps you share your family stories online. And at the end of this presentation, government website, I was able to get that really cool deed transfer. So every great search online leads to something offline to figure out the next part. And for me, I actually was able to visit the cemetery listed on Isaac and Sarah's death certificates, which was just a subway ride away from where I live in Manhattan. And it was really meaningful for me to be able to pay my respects to family members I hadn't even known about prior. I was also able to use directories that I found in a library to trace their address of where they lived in New York almost every year that they were there, and was able to do a walking tour in their old neighborhood, again just a subway ride away from where I was living, having no idea that I had had any family who had lived in New York City before me, and was able to see where they had lived in the streets. And then I can look at that ship manifest to see what they were listed as with their original last name. So I picked out some family members to search, and in this case looking for after 1905, since I'm looking for the American records. And the results were that I found my great-grandfather's sister, Goldie Israel, her 1926 petition for naturalization, which, as you can see, has the name of her ship on it. So I looked on the manifest, and it had the original last name, which led me to all the rest of the ship manifests under the last name of Yarriker. So you can see where they got Yorker from the original last name. So for one person, what are the areas where you can find records? So for Abe, first of all, starting with his birth, there are 2 sets of records that you can find for a birth. You've got the government birth certificate, and you've also got religious records. Well, in his case, I was able to find out by searching online that records don't survive from his town of Kana from that time period, so I struck out there. Now, there are different kinds of government records that are available, starting with censuses, as we saw in the first example. There is a census from Russia that I should be able to find him in shortly before he immigrated, and also every 10 years, US censuses. And in this case, I was able to online to find results for him and other members of the Yorker or Yarriker family, which were very useful. For immigration as well, as you saw, there's ship manifest and naturalization records, where I was able to have a lot of success once I figured out that original last name. And finally, there are other kinds of government records besides these. In Russia, there was a voting list for the area where Abe lived. And in the US, there were also military